Hey, my creative friends. It is Shannon from Shannon's Studio here tonight, and I just have to laugh because my kids, I told them, okay, I do this video thing, and so don't call or text or, during this time. So they've messed up a couple times, and I've gotten the chats, the texts and that sort of thing, and it's fine. And so tonight, Cassie, one of my daughters, she calls and she said, can you talk? And I said, well, yeah, I have a few minutes, but then I have to, do my video. She goes, no, you don't. I said, yeah, I do. And so we went through this conversation, and she found out that Sweden they have Swedish Standard Time. I don't know what it's called, but I didn't know that. We move our time zones by an hour. And it's the last Sunday in October that we do that. And so we had no idea that we've been running at a different time than you. So she was so pleased. She was just really, really pleased that she did not didn't mess me up or anything else. But anyways, so I couldn't stand doing it in the bathroom like yesterday. So I am sitting underneath the lamp, and it's going to be fine doing it this way. Somehow I just couldn't get comfortable in the bathroom with you. So let's see. Today, our first day in Denmark, before we get to our tip, the first day in Denmark, we went to look up a family home that in Alan's family, that someone was born in 200 years ago, and 60 years ago it was still there. So, we have this information from his family, and his dad's written a book, the Christiansens of Sorrow, Denmark. And so we go look, and we look all over, and we can't really place it. We're not positive, but we keep searching, and one thing led into another thing. And this, we talked to this older lady, and she directed us to the person at the library who happens to be so into Denmark history and homes and everything else. And he put the pieces together and realized that the family Christiansens have thought this home was in a certain place in Sorrow, but it's really the town over. And the pictures that we had, we compared them to the house that we went to, and so they were, it was the right house, but in a wrong town. And so now all the family history is all off. Hey, Trisha. Trisha, thanks for coming on, because I just found out from Cassie, Sweden and Denmark changed their time. And I didn't know it, and so it's like 8:30 here, but it's really an hour, well, whatever. I usually am an hour earlier for you, and I'm not. So I'll have to be changing that tomorrow and put it back to my regular scheduled time. So anyways, yeah, we found out his family, Alan, now his dad writes family histories and stuff, and now we're messing up the family history of where everybody thought that this house was and the Christiansens were from. So glad I don't have to break that news to the in-law. So, but it was great. It was great fun. Alan was just very sweet about it, and just, like, my people were from here, and he just loved it. I'm glad we took the extra time to just, like, follow every lead, to try to find it, and it worked out. So that was really fun today. So, but what we're going to talk about tonight is, I entered that I entered that little Christmas, they draw and cook, my little Christmas house tradition. I think I put it on Facebook, and I entered that into they draw and cook little competition. And it wasn't like a big prize or anything. It was just like there was a guest judge, and she comes on and she picks 4 she likes, and they put them on their website. And so I turned it in, and I turned it in, and it didn't win. Hey, Alan. It didn't win. I think my connection's not that great, because I think we're all on the internet. And yeah, my connection looks like it's going to be going in and out a little bit. But okay, so I turned this in to see if it would be in the 4 that the judge picked, and it wasn't. And so what I'm talking about today is disappointment. Because sometimes Part of the here's a quote from Big Magic, and she says, I remember thinking that learning how to endure your disappointment and frustration is part of the job of a creative person. And that is so true. It's just part of the job. You have to come to terms with disappointment, with your place in what you do. If you put your artwork out there, but even if you don't put it out there, even if you just share it with family and friends, you might get comments that really disappoint you, make you sad, or hurt your feelings. And so I just wanted to go through some ideas that might help you, since I've had a little bit of disappointment in this area. So one of the things is that, first thing is that you just have to acknowledge that it makes you sad, or that it's part of you that you tried something, and it's disappointing when you don't get what you are shooting for. And I really believe that you have to acknowledge those feelings. And sometimes those feelings can range from being angry and envious and frustrated, and just all this whole thing of the whole emotional scale. And we can feel it all. But I think we do have to feel it and acknowledge it. As part of it's just the physical reaction of what happens in our brains, that we're emphasizing. I mean, like a video I talked about before, our mind is wired to emphasize negativity. It's part of our process of protection. And so we're wired to react certain ways. And so you have to acknowledge that. I feel this. But we aren't chained to that feeling or those feelings. Our brain wants to emphasize it, but we don't have to stay there. So that's one of the things, is first just to emphasize that, you know what, I wanted that. I mean, not emphasize, but just acknowledge I wanted that, and it didn't happen, and I am disappointed. I feel disappointed with this, and it hurts, and sometimes you could have a cry or whatever you need to do to have a moment with those feelings. Then the next thing is, we like to have an imagination. Imagination is vital to creativity, but we don't have to have an imagination here in that kind of a situation. We don't have to imagine all these things like, I'm too young, I'm too old, I'm too thin, I'm too thick, I'm too short or tall, or we go through these imaginary things that we associate with this, because we start to get a little fantastical, a little bit in the fantasy realm with this. And when you start doing this, you have to just put the brakes on and say, no, that's not what's going on here. You can't let this feed into other things about how you feel about yourself. Fantasy and imagination don't have any part of this. But you have to realize, and this is what I've realized over time. Some of these things are just subjective. It just is the opinion and the aesthetic taste of a particular individual. So I looked at it, and it's like, what would I pick? They would be different things than her. I mean, I would pick one of the things that she picked. Then there were other ones that I liked, because I went through the website and you heart the ones you like. So I already hearted all the ones I liked. And so mine were different than hers. So when you're doing something, or you show it to somebody and somebody doesn't have the same enthusiasm that you thought they would, or that you would like them to have, you just have to realize, their taste is different. And that's okay. Who she picked for they were good pieces. There's nothing wrong with the pieces. But it was her opinion, and we have to realize when there's a juried show or a judged show, or we show our friends, it's their opinion, and you have to be objective about that, because like she said in Big Magic, Elizabeth Gilbert said in Big Magic, you have to learn how to endure your disappointment and frustration, because that is part of the job of a creative person. So you have to disconnect yourself. It's not about you. It's not even about your feelings. It's about the art and the subjectiveness of it. But you have to realize subjective, didn't connect. I'm trying to write. Did I write that? You have to realize you made something. You made something, and even if you got nothing else out of what your goal was, you came out with a piece of art, and that to me is a great thing. And a lot of times now, because I've had these kind of experiences so often, now I really switch my goal for making the work. Yes, I use the parameters that somebody else has and look at what they're looking for, but really make the art for yourself. So for me, I always shoot for making the art for myself, because then I will not be disappointed to the extent that I might be if I was solely doing it for some other purpose. And really in that, if you do that, that keeps you within a certain style frame too, and it keeps you doing authentic work when you do that. So make something, and so this piece that I did, it was a story about Layla. It's a story about what we did for our traditions, and that I'm happy to have that sweet little memory so I can share that with Joseph when he gets older. And so the artwork was for me, and so for that reason it lessens the disappointment quite a bit. I said, let's see, don't transfer the art onto you. Don't see it as they rejected me. They didn't reject you. They didn't, you are not a disappointment. The art didn't meet what they had wanted. And then the last thing is to go make something else. That right there is okay. Even if you don't feel like it, sit down and do something creative and get those muscles working again. It's so important, because sometimes you get to a space where you're just like, I don't want to do this anymore. It hurts too bad. Well, if that really is the case, then yes, maybe creating in some other way is better for you. But if there's something you really want to do, like she said, your job is to learn how to deal with disappointment. And the best thing I think is to go make another piece of artwork and to build on your own creativity. Make another piece that you want to make. And like I've said in one of my other videos, the pieces of art that I do for me are always better, and people pick those out first in the things that they like. And that's so interesting to me, because really, when you start to make art that's you, that has more of you in it, people tend to like it. People who, I shouldn't say you will find the people who like it. People will be drawn to it, and then you will have people that connect with your work. It might not still win or get into every kind of challenge or contest or jury thing you do, but it will connect with people. So that is the tip today, to learn as part of your job to endure I was reading the quote again because I just think it's good. I'll just read the quote. But I remember thinking that learning how to endure your disappointment and frustration is part of the job of a creative person. So learn how, for you, what processes you have to go through in order to be able to endure that disappointment and still create. That's the tip. Figure out for you. And I'll tell you, it does get easier over time. It does. And you start to create from a different place, and everything with practice, you start to get better at it. So it's not the devastating thing that it is the first time. And so, yeah, the whole idea is to keep creating. And that is the tip today. And I'm sorry that I did not know Sweden changes their time, but I will be back at, I'll have to change the time. I have to look at what the time is. I will be back to the normal times that I was in the States. So I'll just move my time, I guess, to 7:30 p.m. So anyways, if you have another tip to share how you deal with disappointment, then share that with us. Because I know I didn't really cover a lot of things, and there's different people deal with disappointment in a different way. So in different ways. So write down what you think, and remember, you have a creative heartbeat, so listen for it. And I will be back at the time I'm supposed to be back tomorrow. So I'll see you. Bye.